So we've talked a lot about night vision here lately, guys, and the one thing that we haven't touched on much is thermal. Thermal is hands down an amazing option, and it really, quite frankly, comes down to what you're doing.
So what would be, as people are thinking, we're making this video, people in their heads are probably saying, why? Why would I need thermal? Let's talk about that a little bit first, because we have spent a lot of time with things like PVS-14s. We've shown binos, we've shown lasers and all kinds of stuff. And more than likely we have people that don't know anything about thermal. They might say, oh, night vision's night vision. So maybe we back it up a little bit and then kind of explain why we would even consider handheld thermal. I feel like you're the one to kind of take it away because you have a ton of experience running around the woods. So
I have a lot of experience with thermal, but I'm also extremely biased, and I'm about to tell you why. If you had this thermal, either one of these thermals sitting here beside a PVS-14, and you said take your pick, I would always pick up the handheld thermal. These guys here, hands down, make spotting predators or anything that's hiding in any way very simple. You can't hide from thermal, especially when you're in the woods.
So for people that don't know, the difference between night vision like a PVS-14, the PVS-14 is going to amplify existing light. So what exists out in the wild, out in your world, this unit is going to capture, amplify, and project it into your eye. That's like the dumbed down version of what's happening inside of here. The thermal unit is actually detecting heat signatures. So there is a difference. If someone says night vision, thermal, they're not an interchangeable term. They're not the same thing. And when we're looking through a unit like this little Axion, I get these screwed up because we have so many in our shop right now, but this little Axion, you're gonna see heat signatures, not just ambient light that is projected to your eye. And like Ethan said, the benefit of this is if we're out walking around, I'll give you an example. We're out walking through a field. If I want to know with a high level of certainty if there's something in the field, whether I'm hunting predators like coyotes, foxes, something like that, or maybe I'm with my friends and we're practicing navigation at night, and we just want to know when we cross this open field, is there anything out there?
Anything.
If I had to choose between a PVS-14 for that task or a handheld thermal, I'm going for the thermal, just like Ethan said. Because without a doubt, besides the situation where maybe something's behind a hay bale or behind an elevation change or something, obviously you're not going to see through stuff, but you're going to be able to see with a unit like this, whereas the PVS-14, I think you explained it to me when we were just getting a night vision. If it's camouflaged in the day, it's camouflaged at night with night vision. And what I mean by that is, think of like animals, how they hide in the woods during the daytime. You could be walking along and not see anything. And the same thing is true at night. You may have the baddest set of binos on your helmet and you can see awesome. But if a critter hides or a person hides well in the day, that same thing's going to happen at night. And these are going to virtually eliminate the ability for something to be out there and not seen. So your application has been largely predator hunting. Can you kind of explain to people how you use these in predator hunting?
The handheld thermal shines over top of a weapons mounted thermal in a couple different ways, and they each have their positives and minuses, but the handheld thermal's lightweight and I can spend hours behind it without fatiguing. And when I say hours, I'm saying we'll start at 8 p.m. and we will run until 4 a.m. So however many hours that is.
A lot.
8 hours. 8 hours straight. I have 2 batteries that I keep with me at almost all times, and when we go out predator hunting, I fire this bad boy up and it does not shut down until I decide to shut down.
How much do you think that weighs? Just approximately. People might look at that and be like, oh, that might be a lead weight, or maybe they think it weighs nothing.
Yeah, it's not light. It's not as light as the PVS-14, but it's also not noticeable to me right now how much heavier this is. It's
so both of these, that
negligible,
as well as the smaller units like this, you could just stick them in your pocket. They're light enough that you could forget about them, have a lanyard around your neck,
That's how I run this guy. I put this guy around a lanyard around my neck so that at any moment I could drop this thing and it's caught on the lanyard around my neck and it just hangs there while I transition to a gun to shoot whatever it is I decide I want to shoot.
Speaking of which, Ethan just did a pretty awesome rundown of his backpack gun, which happens to be one of his main hunting rigs to do night vision hunting. So definitely check that out. Put a card up here. Awesome video to check out. You're gonna get a lot of information about his setup. But that kind of ties me into this, where I wanted people to kind of understand how you would use the handheld thermal. I know you talked about scanning and all of that stuff, but you get out to your set, you've got your gun in a tripod, that's typically how you would hunt with it. You're calling, what are you doing? What does that look like, and how are you using this?
This device is held to my face almost non-stop, and I am constantly moving. I'm looking very quickly, non-stop all the time, because at any moment something could come over a rise, come over a hill, come out from behind a tree, come out of the woods, come out of the thick grass, anything. And you'll catch that heat signature right away with this thermal, where with the night vision, the only way you're gonna find predators at night with night vision is if you're running some sort of IR booster and you get the reflection from their eyes, because the IR does make their eyes reflect right like a spotlight would or something like that.
Which is incredible. I will admit.
It works. I've done it. I've hunted predators with a PVS-14 with an IR booster on the helmet, and it works. But it is not the same. You cannot find them as quickly as with the handheld thermal.
So there's an obvious advantage here. When we're trying to find things quickly at night, when our eyes can no longer help us detect things and we want every advantage possible, that's where the handheld thermal is going to shine. The other thing that we didn't even talk about is when we're comparing this to weapons mounted thermal, the downside of weapons mounted thermal is the fact that you have it on a rifle. So you're scanning with obviously something heavier, and then number two, you're scanning with potentially a loaded rifle, and your neighbor Bob might be who you're finding 500 yards away, and now you have a loaded AR-15 that you're scanning with, which...
If you have a weapons-mounted thermal, you need to have a handheld thermal scanner too. And if you don't buy them at the same time, buy the handheld thermal first, and then buy the weapons-mounted thermal later. It's kind of like a 1-2 hit, swing.
The other aspect that you found that works really well, and a bunch of our buddies have actually invested in and run with, is, you know, your sting. The initial sting is the price points of some of these are pretty steep.
They're high. This unit right here is a $3,500 unit when it was new, and this is an older model Helion, but it still is a 640 core, so the clarity is there, and it's not obsolete, even though it's 3 or 4 years old now.
It's still
very functional. Very functional.
And what we found is our friends that can get to the point where they afford to take the plunge with the handheld thermal, some of them will run a night vision scope. You can get into a night vision scope often for less money. So if you don't have the budget to get a weapon mount thermal and a handheld thermal, you can get a handheld thermal. And then we've run optics, even like the Sightmark Wraith. Like, they're not the best optic out there. They don't perform the best. We're never going to say that's the optic to go for.
The Sightmark Wraith is what it is. It's an entry-level optic.
If you couple it with a really good IR illuminator, it works.
It allows you to get out in the field and spend some time with a gun and a handheld thermal if you choose to buy the handheld thermal first. And you can be successful with a Sightmark Wraith, as crazy as that sounds. I've done it. Okay, I've killed a lot of fox with that unit.
So right now at this point, we've talked about a little bit of the why people might want to get this. So this is overwhelming. When people start diving into night vision in general, it's overwhelming. What should people look for in a handheld? Like, give them
the first thing you need to do is decide what you're doing. What do you want to do with that night vision device? What do you want to do with that thermal device? Because that alone is going to help dictate whether you go night vision or thermal. And that's, again, the first decision, the first thing you need to decide. I'm always out predator hunting. I'm always going to pick up a thermal. But if you're one that doesn't like killing, doesn't want to hunt, That's perfectly acceptable. It's perfectly understandable. Thermal could still have a place in your
just even land
loadout.
Just even land navigation at night. Like I said, we talk about a lot being prepared, possible societal collapses. This allows you to navigate anywhere. Urban, suburban, rural, woodland.
The beauty of the thermal is it also will work in the daytime too. So like the night vision's good for nighttime use only. The thermal isn't going to get hurt by daylight. You can use it daytime, nighttime, whenever.
So as people are getting into this, you mentioned 640 core. We've talked about a bunch of different specs. Just let's give the 30,000 foot view here of what people should consider at a budget level, and then like you're getting into the supercar version. Here's the supercar version, because honestly, the unit you keep holding up is a higher spec unit. It's a higher performer. And then the other thing you need to talk about is magnification. Because
magnification is huge with thermals.
So start off with the different cores and what that means, and then let's dive into that magnification.
So the 640 core is going to have a lot more clarity. So the difference between this unit here and this unit here is, again, mainly size, weight, and the core that's in the unit. This Pulsar Axion Key has a 320 core. This Pulsar Helion has a 640 core.
So higher resolution.
Higher resolution out of this unit. You're going to be able to tell whether it's a dog or a cat with this unit. This unit, if the animal is too far away, you're going to know something's there. You're going to say, ha, there's a heat signature. It's coming into my calls. Or, ha, there's a thing. I don't know if it's a person or a cow, but... But regardless, you're going to know something's there, and you're going to be able to transition to a different optic to then verify your identification. I personally like to run a higher spec thermal core, and then I transition over to a PVS 30 to take the shot or to verify that yes, that is a coyote.
Because you're bougie.
I know.
You're crunchy.
I'm sorry, guys.
That's what my wife would say. You're crunchy. That's why you're running all of this Gucci gear.
It's about the experience. The higher the clarity, the better the experience, the more fun I have. I have freeze frames in my mind of these different situations, and the more clarity there is coming from the unit, the more clarity there is of that freeze frame and that situation in my mind.
And look at it this way. Is there ever a downside to having more clarity? No.
Never.
You're never going to have... It doesn't matter if you have a cell phone with a camera or a camera with higher megapixels. Like, there's just not a downside to having higher resolution. So if your budget says, I can afford $3,000 to $5,000 for a high-end handheld thermal, you're going to get a pretty ballin' unit.
It's going to be excellent.
You are going
amazing
to be
clarity.
Blown away. Same goes with the weapons mount. If you can get a 640 core, you're going to have a higher performing optic on that gun. And that's something to consider. Would I regret purchasing something like this? Absolutely not, because this is a lower price point and it's small enough I can stick it in a pocket. And for me versus Ethan does more hunting. I do more range stuff with night vision where I'm shooting guns like my 10.3 inch here. I've got an IR laser on the top here. I'm doing more range work, so I tend to run things like helmet mount night vision.
Makes more sense.
If I'm navigating through the woods, I tend to use night vision. But I recognize the fact that having a handheld thermal in your inventory is going to give you different capabilities that just having night vision will not. So we talked about a lot of stuff there. What brands should people be looking at? I mean, we held up Pulsars or anything else on your radar?
So one of the other brands that I've been kind of watching what they're doing lately is iRay. iRay USA has a lot of interesting things coming out. And if you're really into that helmet mounted stuff, and I haven't gotten my hands on one yet, but I have every intention to, they have a unit called the MH25. And that is a helmet mounted thermal monocular with a 640 core in it with 1x magnification. So
that just sounds...
It's disgusting. So ultimately, this is going to touch on two topics here. Again, you could have both capabilities on one helmet. You have a PVS 14, you have an MH25 on the other eye. Because it's light enough, you can helmet mount both. You would have thermal and night vision. But then to top it all off, that 1x magnification is 1x magnification. If you have a thermal that you're trying to scan with, and the base magnification is too high, you're gonna struggle because you're gonna be scanning a smaller area, then you're gonna have to come back and scan again, then come back and scan again with a higher magnification than I would say like 3. If you get into like 3.5 or 4 times magnification, that magnification is too high for me.
Especially our area.
Yeah.
Where we're at in Pennsylvania.
A lot of it has to do with area.
Yeah, where we are at in Pennsylvania, look at it with, I'll compare it to an LPVO. So think about you're scanning for targets with a scope. If you had a scope on 1 power, I can pick up a target really quickly. I've got a really wide field of view. It's very quick for me to get on target. Same thing with thermal. So if you have a high magnification and you're in an area like we are, lots of woodland, shots that could be only 50 to 100 yards, we don't see things for 1,000 yards. More often than not, the fields we're in, they're very much rolling hills. We just don't have the distance. So we need a lower base magnification. And yeah, all of these can zoom in and you can do that in the unit if you want to, but that lower base magnification. It's a digital
zoom. That's the one thing is it's a digital zoom in these thermals. So as you zoom in and blow the picture up, it gets grainier.
Yep.
So,
and honestly for me, when I'm using these, I really don't zoom in that much.
I don't ever zoom in. I keep it zoomed out the whole way because the whole point of the thermal is to scan quickly. There's nothing there. Scan quickly. There's nothing there. Scan quickly. There's nothing there. Every time you scan, you know there's nothing. Oh, there's something, and it's coming in hot. Get on the gun, and then I transition.
And then as far as some other features that people might like, some of these units have recording. Some of them have different color palettes for the different heat signature. I think that we save for a different video.
Yeah,
honestly,
there's so much to go into there.
You can get into the weeds. They've got features inside of the pulsar units that we have here that would take us way too long to dive into. We wanted to brush the surface, and a little bit of a shameless plug. Obviously, we want you guys to support us on our channel, and there's several ways you can do that. Steel targets are what you guys have known us for, but we also are a dealer in all things night vision. We can get you guys set up with binos, PVS-14s, handheld thermals, weapon-mounted night vision scopes, optics, things like that. So if you want to get something, we would love to earn some business from you, and we'd love for you to have access to the information that we can give you. Ethan is an asset. If you want to reach out to him, you definitely can. I really want you to blow up his DMs. Tactical Sense on Instagram.
I'll respond to every single one of you.
Definitely hit him up in the DMs, ask him questions. If you want to email us directly, info@tatargets.com is a great way to reach out to us. Just put night vision thermal question in the subject or whatever, and we'll get to your email. We'll help you out. If nothing else, we'll provide you the information that you need. Even if you don't buy the unit from us, we're going to help you out along the way because our mission is equipping you. And ultimately, that's what we're passionate about, whether you're predator hunting like Ethan or out on the range trying to just train with this stuff like I am. We want to help you guys out. So any closing thoughts for people before we send them off?
Nothing too crazy.
Awesome, guys. We appreciate you. Get weird in the comments section. We love that. Troll us. Our buddy Paul, Black Iron Gunner, has a fake account. He's going to troll you back if you get in our comment section and get too weird. Get spicy in there. Let us know what you think. Send some questions our way. Hit the subscribe button. It means a lot. Turn on notifications. Catch you guys next time.